An all grain brewer is going to make it more from scratch.
Okay.
And they're going to start out basically making their own extract, utilizing the grain that we're going to crush up. And in this case, this would make up the vast majority of the recipe.
Okay.
Usually 80 to 90% of the grain would be one of the grains that are across here.
Okay.
Then the additions we would add to it are really what's in the rest of the room, and really what makes such a variety of grains available.
Okay.
There are crystal malts are a real common one. Crystal or caramel are kind of interchangeable words.
Mm-hmm.
These are in various shades of light and dark. This is a 20 Lovibond. Lovibond is the scale that we use to measure the light and dark.
Okay.
This typically imparts kind of a sweeter caramely type of flavor. The sugars that are in this that come out of it are not real fermentable, so they typically stay through. So that's a 20 Lovibond, and we could compare it to an 80. It's just a little bit darker. That's really the difference. It's been kilned a little bit longer. So those caramely flavors are stronger, and we could go all the way to a caramel 120. So this is 120 Lovibond. You can see significantly darker.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually going to have more sort of raisiny sort of flavors.
Okay.
And as you start brewing with these and trying different things, you start to learn just kind of what those flavors that get imparted to it are.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will, so what I'll do is I'll get a recipe and I'll brew that recipe the exact, that way I know I got some good beer in my kegerator. Then what I'll do for my next batch is I just kind of call it, let's just do it kind of a thing. And so I'll start off with a recipe and I'll throw some grains in and make it happen. And it's pretty much, let's see what happens. And if I like it, well then I will write down what I did. And if I don't like it, well then I dump it. And then I do another one. And because that's kind of the fun of brewing is you just kind of, you just experiment with it and you go with it. I'm not doing anything commercially. I'm not selling it or doing anything of that money to make any kind of cash flow. It's a hobby. And every beer is different, which I like. So, yeah.
So then, as we move from there, we can go roast these darker and darker.
Mm-hmm.
Chocolate malts and something like that will be real commonly used in porters and stouts, and we can see in this one.
Okay.
Now, we're
yeah.
a 350 Lovibond. Okay. And really, they all start out as the same sort of grain, the same things we had on the other room in the light grains, but the temperature and the length of time that they're roasted at is what changes one from another. So this will be roasted at a higher temperature for a longer amount of time.
Okay.
That goes to there, and then the black malt is the darkest version of that. This is a 500 Lovibond. We're gonna see we're darker even still. But this is still a malted barley, just like all the grains we've looked at so far are all malted, just kilned to the darkest extent.
Okay.
Then roasted barley and black barley are very similar to the chocolate malt and black malt, except for they were unmalted grains and just roasted, so they impart a different flavor. The malting gives you a sweeter product.
Okay.
The roasted barley is a little bit more, a little stringency, a little bit more almost maybe coffee flavor to it. Okay. But not specifically coffee, but that roasted quality to it.
Right.
But they also add the light and darkness, and those might only be used for anywhere from 2 to 5%, maybe at most 10%.
Okay.
The beers, but the combination of those, of how much you use of each one of them, is typically what gives you the variety of those dark beers that you get.
Right.
Probably one of the more common things right now is using is the East Coast style IPA, which uses very little of the dark or the crystal malts. It's almost all the lighter base malts, and then sometimes we'll add a little bit of a flaked malt. This one is really different. This is oat flakes. Then imparts a sweetness, but also a little bit softer character.
Okay. And
used in that, but also sometimes used in stouts as well, as a oatmeal stout to give it its own kind of unique flavor. Yeah. And as much as that makes a big difference, the thing that makes the most difference is the yeast.
Oh.
Yeast is really the thing that does
All the work.
Majority of the work, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can have the exact same grain bill and same fermentation temperature and everything, but we change the yeast and you're making a different beer.
Wow. Okay.
American and British style yeasts are probably the most popular, and each of those has a number of different varieties as well.
Okay.
There are Belgian yeasts for making Belgian style beers. American yeasts typically are the cleanest of all of the yeasts. I like to think of them as neutral or transparent. So in that case, more of the hops and the grains are going to show through.
Okay.
But then as we work through some of the varieties, you get a little bit more fruity overtones and things like that, but still typically just kind of cleaner.
Okay.
British yeasts tend to have their own character to them. And these basically all originated in various breweries around the world, and then the yeast companies have cultured them up and just sort of created that lineage that started with one brewery.
Okay.
And over the years that sort of brought the character of that part of the world. Another interesting thing too is temperature of the fermentation affects very much what you get from it. Okay. So the same yeast fermented at 64 degrees or 66 degrees is going to give you a little bit different flavor, or in some cases a lot different flavor, than if you fermented at 70 or 72 degrees. The biggest question I probably get from people is just worried about if their fermentation took off or didn't take off. Sometimes being too cold can cause it to have a real slow, sluggish start. Okay. That 99% of the time, the best thing is just to have patience and let it go. And the yeast is going to do its thing. It has to grow, and it's a living organism. Got to treat it right.
Sure, absolutely.
I've probably brewed close to 300 batches of beer in my life. Okay. It's a fair amount of stuff. I tell people I've made just about every mistake you can make along the way, so hopefully that can help keep them from doing it. Sure. But I get a lot of joy in seeing other people start and being able to help advise people along the way and be successful at this, because it isn't something that's going to save you a lot of money, but to be able to share it with somebody or just to taste it yourself and say, I made this and it's really good, it's a very emotional, pleasing thing to be able to do.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like a superpower.
We have what we call a hot liquor tank. Okay. And then we have our mash tun. Okay. Some guys use like a cooler. Okay. To do a mash tun, I don't. So what I do is, for me, I'll heat this up to about 120 to 130 degrees. Okay. And I'll put my grains in there. Okay. I will heat this up to 160. Okay. And what I'll do is I have a coil in here. Okay. And I just like to put this at 120, and then I like to keep this at 160. Okay. And then I run it through my pumps. Interesting. This up to temp. And by the time it gets to temp, it's about an hour. Okay. Like an hour and 15. Okay. And so when it gets up to that temp, then I'll move it to my boil. Okay. And then when I get then, as soon as it gets to the boil, I like to do the boil. I start counting the hour it takes for a boil as soon as it starts to boil. So just because you have it in your boil kettle doesn't mean it's actually boiling, because you can still have off flavors that will come to the beer because it's not boiled off within an hour. And then about 20 minutes to the end of the boil, then I will start running my pumps and my chiller, and I'll just start circulating, because what I'm doing is I am distilling or killing any kind of bacteria that's hanging out in the lines. Okay. Okay. And I just let it run. Some guys, they have a coil that goes inside the boil. Right. Yeah. And they'll boil off any kind of impurities. Right. And so while that's curing, or while that's spinning through the boil, then what I do is then I start cleaning up all my equipment and distilling that and getting that ready for fermentation. So what I do, and what some guys do with a cooler, which they like, is that when you bring your grains up to temp, your flame is not scorching the grain on the bottom. Right. So you're not, because it'll be like a cake. Sometimes the grain will form into a cake and come back down. Okay. and so you got to stir it, keep it loose and stuff, which is
Right.
kind of the way I like to do it.
Sure.
But if I had a flame on it all the time, well, the bottom will get hot, but not the top, because of the last few inches of the grain is condensing that heat.
Okay. Yes.
And
I see what
so-
you're saying. Yeah.
So that's why I like to use my hot liquor tank, because the water does all the work for me, and this section does all the work
Okay.
instead of
That.
this and have it continually going and
Yeah.
all of that. So it's consistency and sanitation.
Yeah.
Sanitation is really the most important, because you can pick up off flavors even if you do everything correct in your kettle.
Yeah.
But if you don't kill any kind of bacteria or anything that's in your lines, or even in your transfer to cooling wort, to even fermentation, you get one sort of bacteria in there,
And that's
and you're going to have an off flavor.